What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ethan's Exotic Escapades. Today I've actually woken up early once again, but we're doing something a little bit different today. We are at a Repticon event in Greenville, South Carolina. So we're going to check this place out and see what kind of cool animals they have here. Let's go see. Here we are at the front. This is actually being held in the Jamil Shrine Temple in Greenville, South Carolina. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe. This is the first table I stopped at, and it was Critter Castle's table. So you can check out that card that you just saw there at the beginning, but I'm going to go ahead and show off some of their cool snakes. This table had a variety of different corn snakes, ball pythons, and some king snakes as well. You can see right there a hypo king, as well as in the bottom left right here and right, there's two corn snakes, and then a California king on the left and one on the right, as well as these two, and the one on the left is hypermelanistic. They also had that really beautiful lavender king snake right there that I thought was absolutely gorgeous. They also had some snakes that looked to me like some kind of milk snakes right there in the top left and right, and then there's some more. There's actually an albino one, and then there's another California king right here and a western hognose that I passed. They also had these that I'm pretty sure were isopods. And then here's some of the beautiful ball pythons they had. They had that butter ghost, a firefly, and then they had an albino boa, actually, right there. And then they had this pastel super stripe, which was gorgeous, as well as a banana pinstripe. And then here's another little California king right here. And there's a super fire, which was the big one that Todd had at his place. And then these harlequin geckos, which are absolutely gorgeous. This one was actually hiding from us, but you could see it. And then this one was a lily white gecko. You can barely see the head down there. And then they had a humongous boa right here, as well as this boa. Moving on to the next table, we have the Reptile Collective, ran by Brian Stewart, and he had a variety of different snakes that were absolutely gorgeous. I also wanted to mention that I'm not going by every single table. I just went to a couple of them and recorded what I found at a couple of them. But you can see the pastel leopard that he had right there, and a pastel fire banana clown, as well as this anery striped dark, and then there's a corn snake right down there. And then he had these two guys, as well as this albino moonshine. He also had some western hognose as well, which I thought was really cool, as well as a variety of different king snakes. My favorite one that he had actually was this one right here. He had a desert king. He actually had two of these guys, I think. Yep, here's the second one right here. But my favorite snake at this table was this scaleless snake. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I've never actually seen one like that. There was also a pastel banana G-stripe at this table, as well as a super stripe and a pastel highway. There's two of those actually. It's hard for me to stop and talk about each one, so make sure you pause the video if you see one that you really like. But moving on down the table, he had a pastel lesser chocolate, as well as a fire spot nose and an orange dream up there at the top left. And there were also some candy and a lavender albino. He also had some clowns at his table as well. Moving on to the next table, we have Exotic Pet and Supply by Endless Scales. They had a variety of different snakes and lizards and some tortoises. Here are some bearded dragons right here, looking cute. And they had some really big blood pythons. Here's a good look at this big old guy in there. Moving down, they had these tortoises, a giant yellowfoot and a redfoot tortoise. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the snakes that they had. What was really awesome about this table is they actually got out snakes for us to look at. This right here is a green tree python, and it was probably the most gorgeous snake that I saw at the entire show. Starting up here, they had these gorgeous flame kings and then some different morphs of ball pythons. Here's a look at some of these guys right here. Some of them were trying to hide from us, so I tried to get a better look at them. And then some of them actually had buried themselves. Moving a little bit further down, they had some smaller red blood pythons, as well as these really pretty morphs of ball pythons. And then they had some motley fires down here, and there were a couple up here as well. these jungle motley fires. Above those was an Aztec sharp, as well as a hypo harlequin, and then this guy that they got out for us, and I believe this guy was a pastel jungle. And then here is a Key West right there, and some of these other guys down here that you can see. I really like the one on the left, the bottom left. As I was moving on down, I saw a variety of different morphs. There's some more Key Wests over here, as well as some of the jungle fires. And then up here, they got out this beautiful snake, and he was a sunfire, and he is really pretty. You could see it kind of looks like gold sparkling. They also had some ghosts at this table as well, a ghost stripe. And there were some hypos as well as some more jungle fires. And here's some more sunfires right here. And then we moved on to over here, where they had a variety of different smaller snake species. At this side of the table, they also had a bunch of different geckos. They had some large and small species of geckos, as well as a couple of odds and ends of some more ball pythons. I thought they had a very good variety of different colors and patterns on their geckos. They had some leopard geckos, and right here is a fat-tailed gecko. He's just taking a nap. And then above him are some different morphs of geckos. And right there is a leopard gecko, another one, and there was crested geckos at this table as well. So here's a variety of the different crested geckos they had. And then they had a pretty decent sized gargoyle gecko right here, and they also had some baby gargoyle geckos on this table as well. Here's a Chihuahua right here. He's trying to do a backflip. Oh, there he goes. There were also these really huge Pine Island geckos that I found at this table that I thought was really, really cool. And they had some tomato frogs, as well as a bunch of different Pac-Man frogs in a variety of different colors. Here's a Super Pikachu up there. And then down here you get a better look at the tomato frog. And beside him is a Matcha Pac-Man. And a Dumpy tree frog as well. And then here's some more of the Pine Island geckos. And they had a little baby albino bullfrog. And then they had emperor scorpions and some species of spider that I couldn't really see that well, but it was in there. And then right here was one of their really, really big Pine Island geckos. And this guy was humongous. Definitely bigger than my hand. And then last but not least was something we actually got to see earlier, but this is another one that they had. And this is another one of those pretty tree pythons. Next up is AHP Exotics, and they had a whole bunch of stuff. Starting off at the very end, they had these jumping spiders, which couldn't get a really good shot of these, but I tried to show them as good as I could. But they had these magnifying glasses that you could look at them. This is a whip scorpion, which I really like these guys. There's another one right here. And then I think I show another one. Yep, they had a bunch of different isopods over here too. That's what all of these containers had in them, all these smaller containers. And then, yep, here is another one of those whiptail scorpions right there. And then they had a whole bunch of different cockroaches and millipedes. That is a rainbow millipede. And then they also had a bunch of different tarantulas at this table as well. Some of the bugs were hiding from us though, so couldn't really get a good shot of all of them. But I tried to at least give a good look at what I could see. So here is a tarantula right here, a Mexican fireleg. And then there were some more of those isopods right there. And then there's another spider right here, as well as a big guy in here. You can kind of see him. Yep, there he is. And then this one was humongous, a rose hair female. And then there's some more tarantulas all across this table. There were so many. Here's a Cuban bronze. And then right beside that, they had some Vietnamese centipedes, which I really like the Vietnamese centipedes. Then right there was a skeleton leg. And there's a female tarantula up there. Then they had scorpions at this table as well. So they had emperor scorpions. Here's a really big one right here. And then here's one right there. And then they also had a deal going on. There's a whole bunch of ball pythons at this table as well, where you could buy one, get one free, which I thought was a really good deal, but I didn't pick up any. Further down the table, they had this fly river turtle, which is really cool. This is actually a freshwater turtle, and it looks similar to a sea turtle, but they have a hog nose, which is really cool. And they have flippers just like sea turtles do. Beside him, they have a big rock iguana, which you could actually take a picture with. He was just chilling there. At this table, there was also a variety of different geckos. Here's a bunch of different crested geckos, as well as some leopard geckos that they had at this table. They also had some of my favorite monitor lizards. Here's a blue tail monitor right here. He's just chilling right there in the front. And then there is a heterozygous T negative Asian water monitor, which was absolutely beautiful. Which, if y'all don't know, I really love my Asian water monitors. Right above those guys, they had these jeweled lacerdas, which were really pretty. They kind of look similar to tegus to me, I think, but they don't get anywhere near as big, but you can see their really pretty patterns that they have on the sides of them. And then below them was this really big blue tail monitor, and he was also really, really pretty. I really like these monitors, and I actually haven't seen one of those before at a Repticon. And then above those were these Gidgee skinks, which kind of look a little bit like armadillos. Moving down the table, they had some really big snakes, as well as some other snakes, some milk snakes, and ball pythons as well. And then they had some small and large ones, actually. Right here was a llama, which I thought was really pretty. I have actually not seen the snake before, but this was a pretty big guy. This table also had some western hognose snakes as well. Here are some Cuban false chameleons on the bottom right, and here's some bigger python species up here. There's a platinum, and there's a sand boa right there, a Saharan sand boa. And then close to where all these guys, oh, well, actually, here's some viper boas. And then close to these guys was this humongous super sun tiger platinum, as well as another really big red blood. That one you can see really good. And then beside these guys, there were a couple of different snakes, a leopard spider and a fire spot nose right there, as well as a jungle carpet, which that pattern on him was very pretty. It looks so similar to a rattlesnake pattern to me. And here's another llama python. Beside those snakes was actually this monkey tail skink, which they have tails that can wrap around branches and stuff, and that's him up there. And there was a smaller Cuban rock iguana right here, and he was just chilling on his little branch. And then above him was this, which, if y'all don't know what this is actually a white throat monitor, and he was taking him a nap. Below him was a Chinese water dragon. You can see him hiding behind his branch. And then above that was this green basilisk. These are actually also referred to as Jesus lizards because they can run on water. They also had a sulcata and Russian tortoise. And they also sold quail eggs here. And then here's a look at some of the other pythons that they had a little bit further down, which we have seen a couple of these already. Next up is Worreptiles and Exotics, which is actually ran by my friends Wayne and Otto. So I had to go take a look at their table right here, which we're probably going to do a video with them later, and I'll keep y'all updated on that. But here is a red tegu right here, as well as some snapping turtles, some little baby snapping turtles. There's a pie ball python right there, as well as some other variety. And then there are some small little baby sulcatas that they had, as well as these really pretty leopard geckos that they had. And then below them is my favorite. This little guy was my favorite, but I already have him. It's a gold tegu, but he was a lot smaller than the guy that I got whenever I went to my last Repticon. But he was really cute. And then over here, they had some more snakes, and then another red tegu, which actually got sold. And then here are some other variety of different snakes. They had blood and heterozygous bloods. And then they had poison dart frogs here as well as some other gecko species. They had a flying gecko and then a red-eyed tree frog. Moving further down, they had this northern blue-tongued skink, which everybody loves these guys, but he was chilling out right here in the front and I could get a really good shot of him. Blue-tongued skinks are one of my favorites as well. And then below the blue-tongued skink, was this keeled belly lizard, which I've actually never seen one of these guys before, but he was just laying right there in the middle. And beside them were these veiled chameleons, which were very pretty. And then a smooth-fronted caiman, which is that guy back there. And then right here, I believe these are some Nile crocodiles. Yep. And that was Otto right there holding one. Yeah. Those guys get really big, so you've got to have a huge enclosure for them. But they also had some red-eared sliders. The next table I went to was called Reptile Passions, and they had a variety of different turtles, lizards, and snakes. So here's a look at some of the turtles that they had. And there's some snapping turtles. Two different species of snapping turtles, some river turtle species, and this is a mata mata right here, which you can't see his head. I show one of those in a little bit that looks better. Here's some common snapping turtles, and then here is a leopard tortoise right here. And then moving a little bit further down, they had some savanna monitor babies. There they are in there. And then I don't think there was anything in that one or that one, but right here they had some Peter's banded skinks, and they were laying in the back taking a nap. Beside the skinks, they had some green tree pythons, which were hanging around on their branches, and these guys were smaller than the ones that we saw earlier in the video. And then they also had some other Asian box turtles. And here is a mata mata turtle right here. This one you can see the head really good, and I show a better look. Here we go. You can see him really good right there. Moving further down, we have a species of crocodile right here, and I think his name was Cornelius. I'm not sure, but that's what it said on the thing. So, and then they also had these rhino iguanas, which there was one in there, so I'm assuming the other one got sold. And this guy was raising havoc in his enclosure. He's trying to dig out, but this is a red tegu right there. And then here's another red tegu right beside him. This guy was a little bit smaller than that guy. And then beside him was a coral iguana, which is a hypo red. And then they had a baby Asian water monitor. This guy was really cute, and I was thinking about getting him, but I didn't. So, and then beside that was those boas, as well as another blue-tongued skink. And this guy was sitting right in the front as well, so we could see him good. Beside him was an Asian water monitor, and he was a lot bigger. This one had a very vibrant color on him. Moving to the end of the table, they had this humongous snake right here. This was some species of boa. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, here we go. Actually, it's a reticulated python. And then they had some more tortoises right there, and then a really big red tegu, and he was just taking a nap, but it was super tame, so he looked really sweet. And then they also had a bunch of different geckos and frogs, and I tried to show this elephant trunk snake because these guys look so weird. So if you don't know what one of these looks like, you need to look them up because they look really weird. You'll see what I'm talking about when you look one up. But they had those elephant trunk snakes and a red-eyed tree frog, and then some house geckos right there, as well as some fat-tailed geckos. And then here's another gecko right there. You can't really see him good. But they had a Cuban night anole. They actually had a bunch of those, as well as these, which are the giant day geckos. They get pretty big. And they also had these really big millipedes. But I really do like the Cuban night anoles and giant day geckos. And then they also had a bunch of different bugs at this table as well. Moving on to our next table, we have the Georgia jumper dude. This guy was actually really cool. He actually took out one of the jumping spiders to show us up close, and he made these really cool enclosures for them where he's 3D printed some different things that he's put inside of them to make them look really cool. These decorations that he's made are really cute. He has these mini hammocks in there as well as some other things. This last table I wanted to show off was premium crickets, where they sold a variety of different bugs that your lizard or animal that you've picked up at the reptile show would need. And I'm pretty sure they also will ship whatever you need to you. And then here's a look at their items, all the stuff that they sell, and I'm showing a couple of their boxes that they have packaged up and some of the already pre-packaged crickets and other things. So I actually forgot to do an outro for the video, so this is the outro. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different, and I'm not used to doing that, so this was my first time recording at a Repticon, but I hope y'all liked it. But with that being said, we're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. I have something very special planned for y'all, but just stay tuned. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe, and I'll see you on the next one.